Hello, BookTube. I once again found myself on Washington Street bitterly early this morning, and once again, after a few hours, when I was free, I treated myself to a trip to the Brattle Bookshop, which is nearby, just a few blocks away, in downtown Boston, and it's a used bookstore. Those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it's a used bookstore with a sale lot outside, so it can be a source of endless bookish pleasure. But I was feeling pretty papery. Uh, and that can affect the karma of the place. So I did not find any massive finds, any huge biographies or gigantic works of history or anything like that. In fact, a somewhat thin Brattle book haul, but I thought I'd show it to you anyway, since we're bookish buddies. And as you can guess, from my last few trips to the Brattle, there was a strong mystery element involved. I have fallen in love uh, in 2020 with reading murder mysteries, and it just so happens, or maybe it was the egg that had the chicken, that the Brattle also has a massive amount of murder mysteries to comb through. Uh, Not so many in the sale lot just yet, but plenty inside the store. And thanks to the generosity of a whole bunch of you, I have steady credit at the Brattle, so I don't have to worry about spending a couple of dollars extra inside the store. So I have 5 books to show you, and 3 of them are mystery related. And the first one is a dramatic disappointment. Dramatic. I've already been through it, and I am very much interested. I have been in 2020 reading murder mysteries, and I've been reading mostly um, British murder mysteries, manor houses, tiny villages, that sort of thing, with detective superintendents and such creatures. And it occurred to me that outside the precincts of the golden age of the murder mystery, I really don't know too many authors. I've read their books here and there while waiting for a dog to pass a kidney stone or whatever, but without really marking who I was liking and why. So some of the really big names I know I like, but some of the other really big names I don't know at all. I'm not sure whether I like them or not. Nagayo Marsh, for instance, or Patricia Wentworth. These people I know. Mary Roberts Reinhardt I know I like, but I thought one of the easiest ways to inquire into authors that I would like, then to pursue all of their works would be to read anthologies. I have one anthology here, the English Country House Murder Mystery Anthology from Carolyn Graff, I think. It's up on the shelf. It was in my both my library tours. I love it, but I know it backwards and forwards. I need more murder mystery anthologies, and I found one at the Brattle, and I thought the cover's really nice. It looks really promising. It's from Mysterious Press, and it's called A Classic English Crime, edited by Tim Held, and it is 13 stories for the Agatha Christie centenary, from the Crime Writers Association. I thought, okay, fine. It's all classic English crimes. They take place during the Golden Age, so between the wars, and they're an homage to Agatha Christie, who was, for all my problems with some of her novels, a fairly solid plotter. So I thought, you can't go wrong. And oh my God, was I wrong? Was I wrong? I'll just read you. I won't belabor you with too many of these things, but let's say this is a short story by David Williams. This is how it starts. Morning, Mummy. Morning, Daddy. What a peachy, heavenly day. Aren't we just lucky to be alive? And let's find another one here. Let's see. Yeah, there's a epistolary. The Lady in the Trunk, which starts out with the line, "I've brought my trunk." Let's see. A couple of others. I mean, they're all just egregiously awful, just egregiously awful. Let me just give you one more example. This is from the story that was written by the editor, which is called "Experts for the Prosecution," and which starts this way. It was a golden day in a golden age. Golden lads and lasses had just breakfasted on golden toast a little blackened at the edge in some cases, spread with golden shred or golden syrup. Now they tripped merrily to a schoolhouse of golden Cotswold stone, burnished by a golden English sun, in a bright blue heaven inhabited by a golden English god. All was right in the world, up to a point. Sergeant Bramble was just returning from the manor house upon his bicycle. The sergeant was stout and pink, and after the exertion of a mile-long bicycle ride seemed stouter and pinker. "Well, I'll be jiggered," he exclaimed to himself as he bent to unfasten his clips. "I'll be jiggered and no mistake." So these despite what their authors might think, these are not pastiches or homages to Agatha Christie. These are parodies of a bad BBC production of Agatha Christie, and the whole book is like that. So my first attempt at getting an anthology to maybe help me sort out the writers failed miserably, and there was a copy at the Brattle of a bigger book, the Oxford, I think it was the Oxford Book of English Murders, English Mysteries, and I shied away from it because of the same feeling that maybe I would be just disappointed one time after another after another. So instead, I moved on to individual authors, which is a crapshoot, because I don't, if any individual author who's written 15 books in a series, it's possible that book 8 and book 9, 11, and 10 will be great, and the others won't be. And you won't know that if you don't know the author, you don't know the series. But I took a try anyway. This is Black Seraphim by Michael Gilbert. This is a penguin. I admit I went for a penguin just hoping that their just general editorial ethos of 50 years ago might help me. I was a little bit put off by the cover. It's a cup of tea and a vicar's collar, and that, that's just, there's no reason to be put off by that, because that's just a lazy design attitude of whoever designed the cover. But I'm going to give the book a try and see. James Scotland, a young pathologist, has come to Melchester on a much-needed vacation. But amid the cathedral town's quiet medieval atmosphere, he finds a hornet's nest of church politics, town and country rivalries, and murder. When one of the community's most influential figures dies suddenly and very publicly, Scotland uncovers some curious alliances among the church, state, and big business. Modern forensic pathology, the age-old mysteries of the church, and a bit of unexpected romance all play a part as Scotland unravels the unsettling truth about Melchester. I don't know anything about this author. I don't know anything about whether or not this book is part of a series. But it's a slim penguin, and it won't take me more than an hour to read, and I will give it a try. And all these things were free. And then the next one is a known quantity that I am just rebuilding. And that's Dorothy Sayers, the Lord Peter Wimsey Mysteries. This is Strong Poison. I've read this a couple of times. I know I like it, but I've never read it while in the spate of one of these periods of great love for British murder mysteries. I've only read it, in between bouts with Herodotus or whatever. So it'll be, I'm sure, more enjoyable now, especially now that I'm starting to pick out commonalities and elements that I like, or cliches that I don't like, or whatever. So that was the mystery element. One massive dud, one known quantity, and one gamble, and we'll see how that turns out. I don't know that I'm going to be getting back to the Brattle for a little while, so I wanted to get some murder mysteries. This next one is historical fiction. It's a novel that has turned up on my library tours a couple of times, and every time I hold it up, no matter what, whether it's a library tour or a Brattle book haul or a charity shop book haul or whatever, and I describe it, pretty much immediately one of you asked me if would I mind very much packaging it up and sending it to you, and since that seems to be the way this channel works, I of course do. What I want to do in 2020, I know that I'm bad at it because I love giving books to people, but what I want to do in 2020 is what I should have been doing all along, which is to say that the books in this room are off limits to that kind of impulse on my part, so that if you notice, if I mention or show you, or a book in this room comes up, this Sanctum Sanctorum, and somebody says, "Oh, I really want that," my response should be, "Well, I don't have a double, but I have access to a lot more secondhand books than you do, so I will gladly look for it for you. I should just remember there is no 4-alarm fire hurry with these things. Most people have more reading on their docket than they know what to do with. So that's what I really need to do. Maybe the rest of the place not so much, but this room, these books should be beyond casual predation. This book has been in this room many times. The last time I had a copy, it was in this room. And this is Stephen Pressfield's book, Gates of Fire, about the Battle of Thermopylae, in which the brave 300 face off against the squintillions of barbaric Persia. That was made into a Frank Miller graphic novel and also into a terrific movie. And Pressfield tells just a solid job here. I've read it many, many times in many, many historical novels. This one is perhaps the best of the bunch, the best one that I've read. Certainly it was impressive enough at parts for me to want to keep it, and to keep it in here. And I also have noticed over the years that this came out, I think, in the 90s. Is that right? The inside of the book tells me this is by the author of The Legend of Bagger Vance. Yes, this came out in 1998, and I've noticed in the time since then, that's 20 years, that this book is wildly popular in the U.S. military. There's a copy of this on pretty much every army base in the world, and you can see why. I really like it. I will gladly reread it, and when I get rid of a book from in this room, from this sanctum sanctorum, there's a part of my mind that is always on the lookout for that book, just to fill the space, even though I have filled the literal space long since. The minute there's an opening on any of these shelves, the great game of Jenga begins, where I decide, okay, well, I'm going to put a book in there, and that frees up this, and this frees up that, and that frees up this, and what if I were to move around these so that I can make more room there and whatnot, because there's only so much room on these shelves. And then the last book I got is a Pimlico trade paperback. I've mentioned on this channel before, I have an irrational and abiding love for Pimlico trade paperbacks. I'll buy them pretty much regardless of the subject, but in this case, this is a book from, I think, the 1980s that I do remember reading, and I did remember liking it, so all the better for me to have it in this edition. It's by Philip Mason, and it's called The English Gentleman, The Rise and Fall of an Ideal. And there's Wilson Shugart on the cover. And this is all about, the author goes through English literature and society from Chaucer to his present day, trying to understand what has and has not always counted as the English gentleman. What is a gentleman? The concept that you can find right at the heart of, for instance, Pride and Prejudice, right? Where Lady Catherine brings Elizabeth Bennet to task and says, well, essentially, who are you to want to marry my nephew? And Elizabeth says, who do I need to be? I'm the daughter of a gentleman. And Lady Catherine says, but who is your mother? And there's all sorts of, that is such a fantastic scene, and there are all sorts of things that aren't spoken that are just hovering around it. And that was, 300 years before this book, and Chaucer was 300 years before that. So it's a fascinating tapestry. It could be 3 times as long. And I'm gonna reread it, but I think there's a chance that it will come in here, that it will end up in this room. So not just a Pimlico trade paperback, but something that will end up in the what I'd like to call the permanent collection. If I'd stop giving it away, if I'd stop giving these things away, then they would be a permanent collection. And that was my Brattle trip for today. So it ranged across the spectrum from books that I know I want to keep, to books that I know I love, to books that I am taking a chance on, to one book anyway that is just garbage, just vamping on the part of the authors. So not the usual. My usual Brattle haul on this channel is just one book after another that I'm absolutely overjoyed to show you. That wasn't particularly the case here, and it was also bitterly cold, and I was not up for the Brattle, so we'll have better luck next time. But in the meantime, I'm going to wrap this up, but I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.